Is TOOTHFAIRY a must draw in Reverse 1999? This video will tell you why. Welcome back to Calcs Gachas, and in this video I am going to talk about why I personally think that TOOTHFAIRY is a must draw and the only character so far that I've seen till date 1.5 included that is a must draw. And to understand why, I must first take a look at her skills with me pointing out the exceptional parts of TOOTHFAIRY. So first, she's a 6-star unit, and of course she is mental damage, but damage isn't really the concern because she is more of a healer. You can see that she has a debuff as well as purify. I think her main thing itself is going to be her debuff. So first we are going to take a look at her ultimate. This is a one target attack, deals 500% mental damage and has a plus 30% crit rate. So this is very important because if she crits on her ultimate, she is going to be purified, and purify is a huge thing also when it comes to upcoming content, especially in Sea Serpent, whereby the ice bite is going to do a lot of damage if you're constantly under it. So definitely one of the good skills over here, and the 30% crit rate does help a lot. Next is going to be Empty Gums. This is a single target debuff skill that inflicts a stack of confusion, and for confusion it is crit resist minus 25% for the target. Effectively this is crit rate plus 25% because the crit resist can go below 0, so it can go to negative. However, I would say that this is her weaker skill, and trust me on that. You guys might think that I'm being ridiculous that this is her weaker skill because that is how strong she is. This is in fact her weaker skill. I'm going to explain more later on. Next is going to be Lullaby. This is her mass healing skill. Restores 80%, 120%, 200%, similar to other healers, right? Like Medicine Pocket. And additionally, she will enjoy a 30% crit rate on her heal, meaning that this can crit. It does help a lot, but of course her ultimate does not have the healing, unlike Medicine Pocket. We're going to do comparisons later as well. So this is going to be her healing skill. Pretty decent, but seriously her most exceptional part is not her skills, but instead in the insight, because the insight provides something called Baby Tooth. So when entering battle at Insight 1, instantly gains 3 Baby Teeth. When any member actively uses a character incarnation, collects 1 Baby Tooth. This includes herself as well. The translation isn't exactly the best. Should use all allies. Regardless, at the start of the round, consumes 5 Baby Teeth to reduce enemy team's critical resist and critical defense by 15%. So like I mentioned, right, critical resist effectively is crit rate for the entire team because it reduces every single unit on the opponent's side's critical resist, and also critical defense is critical damage. So added together it is very good. I'm also going to show you guys the calculations later, and this last one turn cannot trigger if Baby Teeth are insufficient. So what this means is that every other turn you're going to be able to trigger Baby Tooth in a 3 battle scenario, because you're going to move 3 times, right? If you use all of the AP. Of course, if you shift cards, maybe you are not able to do that. But in the future, when there is 4-man battles all the time, even the Limbo now is 4 party members, so you're able to definitely move at least 3 cards per turn. Hence, you will definitely get this critical resist and critical defense debuff on your enemy teams every other round. Definitely for sure one. So this is why this is so good. And also, right, when you look at I3, this is where it complements the I1 also, because for entering battle, instantly gaining 3 Baby Teeth is not enough to trigger the 5 Baby Teeth. But if you add in the I3, you are going to additionally gain an additional 2 Baby Teeth. So instantly when you enter the battle, you are going to inflict the debuff already. So instant effect, even for short battles, is going to be good. For long battles, also good. And additionally, all allies recover 10% of missing HP when triggering this effect. So healing plus the debuff effect. And what is most important, if you read all of this, right, it effectively means that you don't need to even heal, you don't need to act at all. You can be as AP generous as you want, right? Don't use any cards. You can still do debuff. You can still heal based on missing HP. So this is why TOOTHFAIRY is so freaking sick. Now going to her portraits, of course, for free-to-play players, I would suggest P0 is enough. She's a P0 god, but at P2 most notably, the debuff lasts 2 rounds instead. So it means that this will have a 100% uptime instead of a 50% uptime, more than 50%, because you will on average earn more than 2.5 Baby Tooth per round. But just looking at this, you might not be convinced that this is strong. So I'm going to show you guys some calcs based on NGA, and also I'm going to show you why I think that the first skill is effectively worse than the passive itself, right? Quite ironically, but this is exactly the case. So this 15% crit hit as well as the 15% crit hit damage for 1 round, they use 2 characters for the buffing comparisons and as well as the buffing calculations. So first one is going to be Centurion, second one is going to be Melania. And for these 2 characters itself, they have some base stats that they actually simulate for them. For Melania, you can see that this is a 26% crit rate as well as a 153% crit damage. And over here you can see for Centurion, this is 67% crit rate as well as 180% crit damage. So this is going to play a part in how effective it is to utilize Tooth Fairy itself, and I'm going to show you. So this is as a good example. It's not going to cover all the characters, but once you understand the logic, you are going to know why Tooth Fairy is so good. So over here you can see again single targets, 2 targets and 3 targets. You can see it's a flat 15% increase for Centurion and a 9.75% increase for Melania. The targets do not matter at all. However, at the same time, do note that this is not character specific to some extent. It is in fact based on the fact that Centurion in this setup has higher crit damage. So definitely she will benefit a lot more given the fact that when you are given like a expected value for crit rate, right? Example 10%, right? 10% have to multiply against the crit damage to get an expected value. At 100%, of course, the crit rate will not matter that much, which is why characters like Leah is not able to utilize Tooth Fairy as well compared to other characters whereby the crit rate is not yet capped, so the increase will depend on the crit damage itself as well. So these two things go hand in hand. In general, in layman terms, right, as long as you have higher crit damage, you are going to benefit more from it as long as your crit rate is below 100%. So this one should be very, very clear itself. And also one thing to note is that because it decreases crit resist, it doesn't mean that if your crit rate is capped, it will not work, because crit resist will effectively reduce your crit rate. So this is in addition to that another benefit whereby you can utilize the fact that all enemies will have the crit resist. You are able to minus that. So even if you are capped, right, if you don't have the crit resist debuff, you also wouldn't crit hit 100% of the time. So Tooth Fairy actually compensates from this angle itself. So very, very effective. And then you can see that the calculations, of course, this is 15% when there is a debuff there. Like I mentioned, it's not 100% uptime, but neither is it 50% uptime. After every 5 rounds, you're going to get 3 rounds of uninterrupted debuffs because this is based on 3 actions per round. Of course, in future 4-party content, if there are more instances whereby you do not move cards at all, this will in fact even increase, right? But just using this calculation, you're going to get 9%. If you use the 50% uptime, you're going to get 7.5%. And of course, with P2, this is going to be 100% uptime, which means it's going to be 15% all the time. So this is how you actually calculate it. Now, conversely, why I say that the first skill isn't exactly the best is because despite the 25% crit rate increase, you are only looking at an increase that is less than the passive, because it also takes into account whereby it gives you extra crit damage, right, on the target itself. So only 6k compared to the 6.3k for the passive debuff, which means that she is as AP generous as you want, right? You don't use this card, she will also excel. Of course, if you are looking at someone with even higher crit damage, which I'm also going to touch on later, you're going to see a higher increase. But with that, we are just looking at Tooth Fairy in a vacuum, and a lot of people are actually skipping Tooth Fairy because they think that they have Medicine Pocket, which I don't fully agree. I don't think that Medicine Pocket can actually replace Tooth Fairy. I'm going to give you guys a couple reasons as well. The first thing is because when you look at Medicine Pocket, right, a lot of people like to say that, hey, the first skill actually gives damage taken plus 20% to the target, which means that this is a huge debuff that you definitely want. But in fact, I think this skill is the problem for Medicine Pocket, and a lot of times you don't want to use this skill. And the reason is damage taken plus 20%, right? Damage taken debuff is an extremely common debuff. Just to name a few common sub DPS that you compete with, is going to be Beacon, it's going to be Baby Blue, as well as in future Charmaine, which is also Beast type. So this is inherently a problem for Medicine Pocket because you cannot stack these two things. It will have the higher percentage take precedence, which means that if on all 1-star, sure, you can increase by 20%, but you're increasing it from like 10% to 20% for Charmaine, 15% to 20% for the Beacon, and as well, you cannot use them on the same turn, by the way. If you use them on the same turn, meaning the 2 turns on Beacon, 2 turns on Charmaine, 2 turns on Baby Blue, they are going to be overwritten by this 1 turn on Medicine Pocket. So effectively, you're getting less damage from this itself. So this card is a very problematic card when it comes to Medicine Pocket's utility, which I think takes a heavy hit, and why she's being overshadowed by Tooth Fairy. And also notably, right, I think Daze is extremely good for Medicine Pocket outside of content that cannot be controlled, and most notably boss raids, which really require you to have good healer. So in that aspect, this one is already quite like detriment. Of course, though, we cannot forget that you are able to use this quite often, given the fact that the Muxi +1 for Medicine Pocket is going to come in handy. And also, right, if you look at this inside one itself, when you cast the ultimate, you're going to get additional heal, which also means that in theory, Medicine Pocket has a higher HPM heal per move compared to Tooth Fairy. But that is considering the fact that she is given the ability to move, in fact. Because when you look at TOOTHFAIRY, like I mentioned just now in the Calcs, right, just by not moving, right, you are able to get the heal, you're also able to get the damage increase as compared to Medicine Pocket. If you look at the calculations for her first skill over here, even if there are no existing debuffs, right, you're already only looking at similar comparisons for an increase when compared to TOOTHFAIRY, but you have to actually use the skill itself. So this is where the problem Medicine Pocket lies. But of course, in higher difficulty content, right, Medicine Pocket also excels in the fact that she has this sturdiness, which we cannot overlook at all. Healing plus sturdiness is actually very, very good. So I think if you have Medicine Pocket, you are looking to skip TOOTHFAIRY. Is it reasonable? I think somewhat, but at the same time, you cannot think of them as equals because of future content, like I mentioned. And in future content, we're going to have Sea Serpent, which to my knowledge is being rerun for 1.5 as well. So we're going to have 2 patches of Sea Serpent in the boss rates. Of course, you can say that you don't care about boss rates, but effectively we are amassing units because we are trying to clear content. So we definitely want to cater units to content. This is the reason why I think TOOTHFAIRY is going to be very good. Effectively, they are only replacing 1 boss per patch. Maybe in 1.6 even we are going to see Sea Serpent rerun for a 3rd time. So that is going to boost the value of TOOTHFAIRY so high. And also, another thing that I would like to mention is because this is based on comparisons, like I mentioned, this is based on the 180% crit damage. We are using Centurions as an example, but in the future, right, a lot of units revolve around crit. And just to mention a few good units that actually go with TOOTHFAIRY, you are going to see a lot of this being mentioned. First one is going to be Spatodier. So this is a unit whereby she gets a lot of crit damage. You can see the whole kit revolves around crit damage, but only the portraits give you a lot of crit rate. So without the portraits, right, you are effectively not going to have that much crit rate. You definitely want to have TOOTHFAIRY, as well as also having that high crit damage is naturally going to make her a good target for having a TOOTHFAIRY support. And also we have Shamin, which also has the overflow mechanic with the crit rate, with the crit damage. So crit rate converts effectively to crit damage, so it's a double flow whereby you're going to utilize TOOTHFAIRY to the maximum potential as well. And I think this is going to be super effective when paired with TOOTHFAIRY. And also notably, right, we already have someone like Regulus that uses the crit overflow mechanic. So even if you just look at Regulus, you're going to see that Regulus is going to be one of the good targets when it comes to utilizing TOOTHFAIRY as a support. And lastly, just to go into the future, right, whereby scaling is a thing, right, I do feel that TOOTHFAIRY has the potential to scale a lot, given the trend that they have introduced like units such as Spatodier as well as Shamin, like I mentioned, utilizes crit damage really, really well, utilizes crit rate very, very well. And also not to mention, right, just like Balloon Party, another reason why I say that Balloon Party and TOOTHFAIRY is like the 2 healer that you need, right, instead of Medicine Pocket and Balloon Party, is because Balloon Party can scale even harder. Right now, all of our units are just at Insight 250, but in the future, you're going to have all of your units at Insight 3 max, and all of that just going to bring about more HP. So we're definitely looking at better scalability when it comes to Balloon Party as compared to Medicine Pocket. And also not to mention, TOOTHFAIRY also have that missing HP element in her baby too. So I definitely think that when you look at this as a whole, I definitely consider TOOTHFAIRY a superior mass pool unit as compared to a skip when you have Medicine Pocket. These are my reasonings for this conclusion. Now, of course, with that said, right now what we should be concerned with is going to be patch 1.2 as a whole. So definitely check out this video over here where I go through everything that is potentially coming in 1.2. I see you guys over there. This is Corky Gachas, signing off.